Aloha. Welcome, guys. It's Aloha Friday, and the dog's running back, forth, back, forth. It's like, I want attention. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. You coming, Cassie? Okay, come on up here then. Say hello. No, yeah, Mom's talking, which means it's time for a treat. Yes, exactly. So they've been waiting so patiently all day. So, okay, you guys can get a treat. So, how has everyone's Friday been? Ready for a weekend? I've been trying to get ready. I've got a craft fair tomorrow. Well, not necessarily a craft, an expo type thing. We're going to be over at one of the malls and we're taking over the mall, the whole group. So lots of people, lots of fun. And I've got to do a hell of a lot of sealing diamond paintings and putting them in that blue thing you see back there. So we will see how that goes. But here we are. We've got a mental health live today. And as was mentioned in chat, when DC came up, AJ came up, this is the first time that he'd heard this term before. And honestly, this term has been around since the 50s, but it does not get the coverage that it should be. I myself I've heard the term, but I hadn't heard it in a long time until all of a sudden a few weeks ago it popped up in my feed. And I'm like, okay, it's popping up in my feed for some reason. Let's take a look at it. And in my case, where I was versus where I am now, for others, maybe help introduce a new idea to you guys. Because it's in learning about styles and how we behave and things like that, that we're able to look at just where we are in life and where we're going in life. So, but first of all, AJ hit the chat. Yep, poor Christola keeps trying to get that first, just did not make it today. I love you, Christola. Mwah. Love you, love you. And AJ, I'm happy you made it in this early, and that's awesome. I hope you're doing good. Hope everything's going good with family and all that. So, I hear also you're correct, but also I'd never read things like, okay, I'm sorry if I'm that. Oh, yes, the DSM-4. DSM-4. I think you're talking the DSM-4 or something, or 5. 5, it's not. They keep updating it. So anyhow, the DSM. There you go. So, oh, you got first in both chats. Yeah. Someone's hanging out over in the Discord, the Twitch area. So, Susan, you win. You're the first Aussie. Yes. Aussies rule. Okay. I've never been. I want to go to Australia so bad, guys. That is literally one of my cruise dreams is I want to go over there, Australia, New Zealand. Really want to get to China and all that also. Thailand. I just want to get that side of the world. And so much influence of that out here in Hawaii that anyhow. But here we go. And so things are good. I'll be able to do canteen today. Yes. And I have my headphones in, so I'll talk in normal. You know what I've learned I have to do is after Cantina, I lower my voice for Cantina, and then I have to remember to bump it back up for regular lives because otherwise it's too soft. So, and no, you're right. It's all of it. How you doing, Miss Christola, too, and Susan? So we got a couple of you guys in here. So we're going to do a little bit different right now. Today we're going to do a quiz as part of this thing. When we get to it, we're going to actually focus on a quiz because I want you guys to be able to get a better idea of where your attachment style is. Okay. We can think we know what it is, but unless we take tests or look at things like that, you can't really find that out. And the quiz we're going to do is it's more like a magazine quiz that's put together by a mental health expert. So it's not like really something you'd get if you go and take a more in-depth quiz. Yeah. And also remember that when we get to it, but it gives us some good ideas. Definitely gives us some ideas for sure. So, everyone, yes, Crystal, everyone, remember, jump into live chat. Okay. Yeah, we are back at school and all that other stuff. So anyhow, I got some stuff and I actually did have to print out a bunch of notes because I kind of ran out of time to add extra stuff in, and I'm not sure how much time we're going to need for all of it. So I have extra stuff if we need to go into it. But let me move this over here. And first of all, really important, guys, the crisis hotline. You guys know about this. We've talked about it before. Okay. It's an amazing lifeline that's out there for people to use. Okay. People aren't going to report on you or anything like that. You can talk with someone who is there for you to help you, give you the information you need, help, okay, you if you're in a rough spot. People who are trained. Okay. People that aren't like me, that are not trained. These are actual people who have been trained for these things. So please use 988. Um, it's great to have other people in our lives, but 988 is key right there. So don't forget that, please. And if you got any questions, though, please, or have subjects, guys. I say this all the time. If you have subjects, please email me at thelocalmylife at gmail.com. I've got a couple emails I just noticed I did not check yesterday and I need a reply to. So if you're one of those people, I'm sorry. And also, it's been crazy this weekend trying to get ready for this weekend. So, okay. So let's see. Let's start with just the discussion attachment styles. We mentioned a few minutes ago that this is something a lot of people don't hear about. Okay. Put a one in chat. I know we don't have a lot of people here quite yet. YouTube is still getting their notifications out and all that. Put a one in chat if you have ever heard the title, the wording, idea of an attachment style. Okay, put a two in chat if you're like, oh hell no, I've never heard this before. What the heck is this? Okay. I was kind of a 1.5 to be honest. I'd heard it, but it had been so long that I really needed to review it again. And hello, butterfly kisses. Hope you're doing good. Okay, we're getting ones, twos. We're getting a combo. Hello, 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 lightning bug. And awesome. Okay, so we're going to kind of go through this. Talk a little bit about how, because a lot of times, like a lot of things we deal with in life, an attachment style comes from our childhood. We talk about domestication. If Rosaline was here right now, she'd be saying domestication. Yes. Okay. So much of what creates us into what we are today comes from our childhood, how we were raised, what the environment was like, how we were treated, how we were expected to act, things like that. Were we expected to be quiet, okay, seen but not heard? Were you a back in the 80s? Were you okay? Your both parents worked and you went home and you took care of yourself and all that, latchkey child. And that's what attachment style comes from. Basically, our attachment styles, and there are four that they talk about most often, and it could be childhood attachment styles. We all of us have attachment styles, whether we are a child, a middle age, teenager, senior citizen, whatever. And but they develop while we are children. Okay, those early experiences that we have with our caregivers are going to pretty much figure out how we relate to other people the rest of our life. How are we going to respond to our significant other? Okay, in that close type relationship. Hello, hello, hello. Hope, how you doing, my dear? Hope, honestly, I don't think we're ever going to completely account for everyone. We'll talk more about during Cantina if you want. Um, just because of how so many the way things are. I think we're getting numbers out there, and the numbers are starting to become more realistic as people are reporting. There's actually a reported list out there. I've seen the list. The list started a little higher. They've lowered the numbers on the list as people have found themselves on it and be like, oh no, 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 I'm still here. But honestly, I don't think we're ever going to totally account for everyone, whether it's adult or child. I don't think we're going to ever completely, and it's sad. Um, I just, yeah, you would hope they would. You would hope they. Hey, Cristola, no worry about the links, and no worries, no worries. I did check. Batissimo is working, so we should be good on that. So, um, but yeah. So attachment style, and hey, attachment style. Honestly, we just mentioned Maui. Maui is truly going to affect a lot of children and their attachment styles. Okay, because so much happened at that time that's going to okay, kind of create who they will be as they get older. Okay, the fears of being separated from people. Okay, things like that. Okay, a lot of changes going on. But basically, in our early years, our brain is forming. We all know that. Okay, we've heard of things like DID. Okay, if a child is going through severe trauma as a child, they have a chance of developing dissociative identity disorder. Their brain is still working out all these different things. They're developing a sense of themselves, who they are. And so that's where attachment, okay, style comes in. Hello, Jets mom. Love you, my dear. Mwah. So, to give you an idea of how it develops, and guys, it's very easy. A lot of people see because there are of the four styles. One is a positive style. The other three tend to have more negative attributes. Okay. But that doesn't mean that just because you're one of those three, you had a horrible childhood. And we're going to go through an example of how a family, okay, with four children could literally have developed all three of these attachment styles. Okay. My brother's attachment style is completely different from mine. And that happens this way. Susan, your style of being raised was not very nurturing. So I guess it's messed you up. Yeah. And it does. Sometimes it's not any fault of a parent or something. It's just what happens. I grew up in a military family. There was a lot of moving around and stuff. But that affected my attachments. Trust me. Um, who your babysitters are, who your daycare is, things like that are going to affect attachment styles. And also, let's look at a family. Okay, I mentioned how we could actually look at a family and see how um, four different children could honestly have all four different types of attachment styles. So, say you've got this family, four children, two adults, and mom and dad are there with them. Wonderful family. Hey, Sleuth, I love you, my dear. Mwah. Love you, love you. Um, so the four kids have an amazing life with their children. They're all 7 and under, something like that. They're not really old or anything on that level, but okay, they've got that range. And mom, dad, amazing, loving, caring family, that perfect family and all. And when the oldest is, say, 6 or 7, dad dies. Okay, no one expected it. Okay, nothing happened. Maybe it was a car accident. Maybe who knows what it was, but dad passes away. Hey, Robin, welcome, welcome, and love ya. Um, no one ever planned on it. It wasn't like he was sick and they were able to prepare for it or anything like that and say goodbyes or anything. Just up one day, the family goes from having mom and dad in a loving relationship to mom trying now to raise her four children as a single mom. Okay. So her life has changed. Anyone who's ever been, okay, had a friend who's been in that situation or themselves in that situation knows just how much that affects your day to day life. So you've got this case where the older child, they're kind of already settled in who they are. At 6, 7 years old, you kind of have developed some sense of who you are and things. They grew up with that mom, dad, okay, really nurturing, okay, helping them really feel that confident sense of attachment between someone and someone they love. It was there. They knew that person would always be there for them, things like that. So that child grows up with a very, very secure sense of an attachment style. They know how to create the relationships, things like that. However, when this happens, mom goes through a lot of changes. Maybe she's having to get another full-time job and she's away from the kids even more. Okay, maybe she's trying to cook. I mean, four kids under age 6, 7. Yeah, that's going to be stressful and all that. So she is not able to give the time that she used to give to the oldest. Okay, she is having to run, run, run crazy. She's getting frustrated. She may scream at the kids. Who knows what it is? It's just temper's shorter. She's not around as much. She's trying to make all these things mesh and no fault of hers. She's just trying to survive and give her children a life. So now we look at these other three children. Okay. The next oldest, um, exactly, Susan. It's hard to know what you will be when your parents divorce when you weren't even five, because it's going to make the difference in here, as you see as we go through this. The second oldest is a little older now, and but they're still maybe they're, Susan, like you were saying, 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old, okay, year old, and they still want that cuddling. They still need to know that someone's always going to be there for them and all. Yet they've realized now mom is so busy. Okay, mommy's getting short tempered. So that child has to start screaming, yelling, acting out, whatever to get mom's attention now. And when she gets it or he gets it, okay, it becomes very clingy. Like, oh, I don't want to let you go. I finally got your attention. I don't want to let you go. Now, that's going to continue as she gets older or he gets older. Okay. And as they're looking at relationships, okay, whether that be with a significant other, friends, whatever, children even of their own, they may, they started growing up in such a way where they felt like to get attention, to get that loved one to pay attention to them, they had to act up. They had to scream. They had to cause whatever they had to cause. Okay, so that's one other type of attachment style. Now, say the next child. Say that next child is in daycare. Okay, they're going to, okay, pre-K and stuff like that. And pre-K is really, really strict. Okay, the mom's at home, but they're very seldom do they get time with mom because mom's working two jobs. So their daycare teacher becomes so important at that point. But then maybe that daycare is very, very strict. Very, they yell at the child. We hear of this at times, not all daycares. Please, please understand that. But maybe it's just that thing where it's like, okay, scream, scream, scream. You don't ask for help or anything, or you get yelled at or things like that. Well, that child now is developing the sense of, oh, I need to hide because the person might yell at me. If I ask them something important, they're going to yell at me. Okay, they're going to scream at me. So I'm just going to stay hidden. Okay, I'm always ready to run because these people who are teaching me how to be me are always yelling at me. So they are leading up to that area where a attachment is based off of this anxiety level of things. And then you got the fourth child. The fourth child may be too young to go to daycare, and also maybe grandma is taking care of the kids. Okay. But grandma is very, very old school. You're heard. Okay. I mean, you're seen, not heard. Okay. They can get very, very loving and caring and all, but if you go pushing overboard, you're going to get in trouble and things. That's going to affect them. So you can see how different ways of being raised, even in the same family, can actually show differences in the attachment styles as they're growing up. And can these things be changed? Yes. We can always change things in us, but we got to understand what's going on first. Okay. If you are having more of an anxious type of security, attachment, okay, not a secure attachment, but more anxiety based, you're going to have to look at what's causing that. Work with a therapist, okay, work with yourself, okay, whatever you need to on that level. So, what I want to do before we go into the specifics on those four types outside of what I just did, everyone, grab a pen, paper, grab your phone, wherever you need to write little notes. It doesn't have to be much. We're going to have a total of 12 questions, and you're just going to give yourself a point if the answer is yes. That's all you are going to do. So it doesn't have to be a big piece of paper or anything like that. Okay. Just you can number it 1 through 6, 7 through 12. We're going to do two different counts on this. So, and I'll let you know when we need to calculate everything. And while you're doing that, I'm going to look at Susan and Hope's comments here. So Susan is saying, my mom slept around with a lot of weirdos. So I guess that's why I didn't cope very well in relationships. Yeah. And I never learned how to be. Didn't help that. And you got it, Susan. If you've got, you could see how these things affect the young you. That's why people look at, okay, child work. Okay, inner child work and stuff like that, because a lot of times there's an inner child that just needs to understand what happened. And for you to be able to say, you know what, it's okay to hurt and all. And now we're going to get better. And also, and Hope is saying, I wish I would have treated my children like it. That's an amazing thought process, Hope. I mean, I think a lot of people there, when you have your children, you're still learning, right? You're learning a lot of those skills. So by the time you have your grandchildren, you've learned a lot more skills that you didn't have. No, Susan, I honestly, I appreciate you when you do. Okay, talk and do things like that, because not everyone feels comfortable doing it, number one. And number two, it helps other people realize they're not alone, because unfortunately, many of us feel alone with whatever is going on. So we keep it held quiet. And I'll, hey, Sue. Hey, hey, hey. How you doing, my dear? So everyone got their paper and pencil ready? Okay, because we're going to start adding some stuff up and answering some questions. So this question actually comes from, one second, let me just change this real quickly. Okay, this questionnaire, like I said, it's not a professional questionnaire. You can go online and search for attachment style quizzes and tests, and you can get a more professional one there. But this, I wanted something we could do here so you guys could have a real quick answer. And then you can verify later if you wanted to. But there is Kelly Magazine. Kelly is actually a therapist who's out there who does work online, used to do work online. And she's got some really good information out on her site. And this was actually a quiz that she had for anyone who was interested in this subject. So what we're going to do is, sorry dogs, is we're going to go through 12 questions. If you feel that that question describes you, we're going to go over that right now, Crystal. If you feel like the question, okay, the comment that I say describes who you are, give yourself 1 point. Okay, and we'll kind of keep going back there. We're going to do the first 6, and then I'm going to have you calculate, and then we're going to do the 7 of the last 6, 7 through 12, and calculate. So, question number 1. Are you constantly afraid of losing your partner's love or attention? Now, guys, you're going to see me using the word partner. I don't have a partner. I'm not married. Okay. So, how I read that for me would be, am I constantly afraid of losing the love or attention of people that I care about in my life, whether it be my mom, okay, my brother, my niece, okay, close friends. So, people that matter in your life. So, give yourself 1 point if you feel you are constantly afraid of losing that special person's love or attention. Question number 2. So now I'm going to do this for me at the same time. I did not do it before. Okay. Next. Okay, let's see. Are we okay in chat? Okay. Sorry, I was just checking chat, making sure that I didn't miss anything. So, next question. Does your need to be very close to important people in your life sometimes scare those people away? So, do you find that there's times that your need to be really close to that person scares them away? We hear that sometimes. You've heard of people who others are always saying, gosh, you're so clingy. You're so clingy. I got to leave because you're just too clingy. And do you feel your need to be close to them is scaring them away? Give yourself 1 point if that sounds like you. Number 3, do you worry that your partner does not really love you? Okay, we're all going to answer yes to some of these questions every now and then. But the majority of the time, the large part of your life, are you worried that your partner, your friends, your children, whoever it be, just doesn't really love you for whatever reason? Okay, whatever but you put at the end of it. Okay, give yourself a point if you feel that people don't really love you. And next, Do you worry that you are not as good as other people? This can be a rough one for a lot of people. Okay, I know this is one of mine, but separately from that, are you always concerned that other people are better than you? Maybe it's a loved one relationship where you're worried, always worried, oh, they're always going to look at someone else. They're always looking at that. They're always talking. You're worried, okay, that you're not as good as someone else out there. Next, do you get mad when you don't get the support or affection that you need from your partner? Do you get mad when you go to this person, whether it be a significant other, whether it be a friend, whether it be whoever it be? Okay, do you get mad when you don't get the support that you're needing from them? Whether you've asked at point blank or they're just not reading your mind, you get upset because they are not giving you the support that you feel you need. And the last of the first group of questions, do you worry about your relationship a lot? Again, could be significant other, could be friends. Are you always worried about the relationship, the friendship? Okay, the child parent relationship, whatever. Are you always so focused and worried about it that it's like a main focus in your head? Give yourself 1 point if that sounds like you. Now, what I need you guys to do is take those first 6 questions, okay? Add up how many points you got there, okay? Add up how many points you have and give me, okay, a number. Okay, you don't got to give me the number. Give me a thumbs up, a heart, whatever, once you guys are done so I know I can move forward. Okay. Would mad and hurt be the same? Yeah. I'm going to say yes. I don't know. I think it's specific to people, but to me, that's hurt, mad, hurt, angry. It's, it might be, for example, like me, I have a hard time with anger. I don't do well with anger. I can't really feel it at times. But instead of anger, I feel hurt. So for me, yes, I would say hurt is the same for me at least. You know yourself. Okay, so looking at those points, if you scored 1, 2, or 3 points, write down the letter A. A is an apple. Okay, 1, 2, or 3 points is an A. If you scored 4, 5, or 6 points, give yourself a B. B as in boy. Okay. You can write it on paper privately. You could put it in chat so you can go back to it in chat. I'm not going to pull these up as comments or anything like that right now. However, you need to write it just so you can remember what your letter was. You either scored an A for 1 to 3 points or a B for 4 to 6 points. Now we are going to move on to the second part. And we've got 6 questions again to go through. And once we're done with those, we're going to go through another point. Okay. So our first question for the second section is, are you comfortable showing your partner, children, friends, whatever, your true feelings? Are you comfortable sharing and showing your feelings, your true feelings about something to that partner, to that important person in your life? Put a 1, give yourself 1 point if you're comfortable letting people know what your true feelings are, if you care about them. And the difference between people you care about and people you don't care about as much. These are the people that you feel connected to, the people that are important in your lives. Next, do you find it easy to depend on your partner? This can be hard because sometimes partners just aren't dependable to begin with. Okay. So look at it in general. Okay. When you have someone who means a lot to you, whether it be a friend, children, whatever, Do you find it easy to depend on them? Or are you guys always got that barrier, okay, that boundary and barrier up like, no, I'm not going to be depending on anyone. I only depend on myself type of thing. That's where they're kind of getting it at that. Okay. Do you find it easy to depend on people you care about? Give yourself 1 point for that if you do. Next, can you let your partner or other important person get close to you without being nervous? Close can be physical, it can be emotional, but can you allow people close to who you really are? Are you cool with that? Or do you get really nervous and you're like, no, you're getting too close right now. I need to put up this wall because no, 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 I don't care how long we've been together. I can't do it. Okay. So there you go, Crystal. Exactly. So put a one if you feel put a one if you feel you can get close to them without being nervous. Next, are you able to easily show your partner affection? Does it come easy for you to show affection to the people you love? Okay, some people have no problem. They are like, "Oh yeah, here we go. Let's give you a hug. Let's do this." Very, very okay, very, very, and it doesn't mean physical affection only. There's other types of affection too. Okay, emotional connections and things like that. But can you show affection to them? If you feel that you can easily show affection to people, give yourself a point. Hey, PJ, we're taking a quiz, real short quiz right now about attachment styles. So if you go back in, you'll be able to see it and catch up. If not, I have the questions on the bottom. If not, we'll catch up with it later. I'll try to post this out for people on Discord also. So again, that question was, are you able to easily show your partner affection? Give yourself a one if you are. Second to last question, does it help you to talk to your partner when you need support? So give yourself a one. If you find when you need help, you need support, you need that shoulder that you know it's going to help you if you just go talk with them. Some people need to talk with someone close for that support. So, does it help you to talk to your partner when you need support? Give yourself a one. And the last question here, do you tell your partner almost everything? Are you one of those people that really, when you're close to someone, you're willing to share everything about yourself pretty much? Okay, you're an open book to them. Or are you the person that, yeah, we've been dating for 7 or 8 years, but I'm still not comfortable sharing some of this stuff about me with you. So if you can tell your partner almost everything, almost anything, give yourself a point. Now, let's go back. Go to those last 6 questions, just the last 6, and add up your points again. You're going to come up with any number between 1 and 6. And so go through there, add up your points for that second half. And if you have 1 to 3 points, 1 to 3, 1, 2, or 3, give yourself a C, as in cat. 1 to 3 points gives you a C, as in cat. If you have 4, 5, or Cristola 6, okay, give yourself a D, as in dog. Okay, interesting, Hope, how you're doing that difference with it, and that makes sense. It does make sense to pull that off. Okay, so 1 to 3 points will be a C, 4 to 6 points will be a D. Now, all of you should have 2 letters. You're either an AC, a BD, an AD, or a BC. Does that make sense with what you guys? Sorry, I just don't want to lose anyone in this. Put your 2 letters together, the first letter and then the second letter. because now we're going to, hey, Princess Megan, how you? Now we're going to put all these together and figure out what you are based off of that. I'm going to give us what she does in her, okay, practice rather than just giving you the fancy words such as avoidant, fearful, or secure, or something like that. We are going to share that. I'm going to give you an animal because, to be honest, these animals kind of just give you an idea of what it is that the person's style is. If you are an AC, okay, apple, cat, you are a cat, a CAT, a cat. A cat is also someone who is considered avoidant dismissive. So remember cat, avoidant dismissive, because we're going to go through each of these areas next real quickly. If you are a B as in boy and D as in dog, you are a koala bear. So if you are a BD, Christola, looks like you are a BD. So there's our koala bear right there. A koala bear is also considered someone who falls in the attachment style of avoidant, fearful. And again, remember what I said, there's 4 different styles. Okay, all of them have different things to them. One is considered the standard positive, but you know what? In my eyes, there's no positive or negative. It's all what we have become and what do we want to change. Next style is A as in apple, D as in dog. So AD. If you are an AD, you are a wolf. If we have any ADs in the house right now, it looks like we got a couple BDs, I just noticed. But if you are an AD, you fall in under the wolf. Now, the wolf is the secure attachment style. That is the attachment style that, in theory, we all are trying to aim for. That is the more or less healthy version right there. Okay. And we'll go through those things. Aha, Hope. There you go. And last is if you are a B, boy, C, cat. So BC, you are a mouse. The mouse falls under the anxious attachment style. So now you guys know what house. I just don't want to lose anyone. Any of you who did that quiz, do you all know what style you are now? Okay, let me know. Put a 2 in chat if you do not know what style you are now and need me to go back and read any of those. If not, we are going to move forward on these different styles now. So hopefully everyone knows what they are. If they were an AC, they're a cat. If they're a BD, they're a koala. If they're an AD, they're a wolf. And BC is a mouse. And now we're going to go into, let me pull up my slides and so we can see what comes next. Okay, so let's start with our wolves. Okay, those of you who fall under the secure attachment style. Okay, basically with this, you're dealing with someone who's usually they trust fairly easy when it comes to attachments. Okay, not everyday relationships always, but it's that developing those close bonds. They trust easily. Okay, they're very in tune to their emotions, understanding where their emotions are. If they get upset, they get mad at something, or if something hurts them, they will usually speak up and say, hey, you know what? I'm not good about this. I'm not happy with this. Okay, and they lead with cooperative, flexible behavior. So they realize the relationship is hand in hand. And that's where we look at the questions and we see where we are on things. And some of you guys, you may want to take a more in-depth. This was really honestly something I wanted us to have something we could work on together. And trust me, the real tests have a lot more questions than that. So they're going to get into the real close stuff. But to kind of go further with that, okay, actually, I forgot to pull that up. So your secure attachment style basically involves less anxiety or avoidance. So there's not as much anxiety about the relationship. You're secure, you're safe in it. You feel comfortable in the relationship. And it leads to a very stable, fulfilling connection where the two of you are working with each other. Now, you got to also realize both people may not be in a secure attachment style. You've got combinations of attachment styles going on at the same time. And but this style is definitely based off of having healthy boundaries, okay, being able to work with each other. Um I'm going to pull this stuff up. How do they develop? How does a secure attachment style develop? Well, usually these are coming from childhoods where you felt secure with your caregivers. You felt comfortable and secure that they were going to be there. You were able to ask your caregivers, and your caregiver may not be like we mentioned in that family of four. Your caregiver may actually have been a school teacher or something. That person was able to give you that feeling. And your caregivers may have been emotionally available for you. And also, you knew as you grew up, you were good. You knew how that healthy relationship worked. And someone who tends to be the secure attachment style is usually someone with a higher self esteem. They manage conflict well. They can regulate their emotions more often. They trust people. Usually, I recognize some of you are saying you don't, but usually, um, they seek emotional support when they need help. They know to go and talk to people, and they're comfortable in close relationships, and they're easy to connect with. You guys have seen those people that are just really easy to connect with as you become closer with them. They just seem so sure of themselves. That's the person we're looking at here. Okay, because that's how that relationship works with them. Now, let's go to our next group. This is the anxious personality. So the anxious personality is our mouse. Those of you who are the mice out there, those of you who were a BC, okay, are the mouse. Your mouse, think about a mouse just in general. How mice act. If you see them out in the house running around or outside in a field, um, they're definitely, it's that anxious, okay, feeling. They're just boom, 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 everything. They're really watching out the slightest noise. They tend to recognize it and stuff like, and they react off of that. So an anxious, preoccupied type attachment style is usually very high. That person tends to be higher anxiety levels and low avoidance. So you're like that little mouse. You're very, very anxious, very, very anxiety based, like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Going on? But they also are avoidant. They don't want to be around. Okay. They don't want to risk upsetting things. Okay. So when we were talking about the family of four, this would have been the child who ended up in daycare, where the teachers at the daycare were always yelling at them and they were always kind of on edge, okay, and getting ready to run away and wouldn't ask questions and things like that. That's who these people are. They got very sensitive nervous system. Okay, they also have a hard time just communicating what they need, because they're worried about what other people might be thinking about their thoughts. Okay, and they tend to act out when triggered. These are the people who, a lot of times, if they're seeing partners paying attention to other people, oh, they're going to act up. Thanks, Hope. Thank you for letting me know that. Thank you for the feedback there. So, this group here, the anxious person, sorry, I got my notes in the wrong order here. Okay, anxious attachment style often have people who are more, there's a fear of rejection. There's always this underlying fear that they might be abandoned or someone might leave them. Um, they depend on their partner, whether, again, it be a romantic partner, a close friendship, or even their child. Okay. It is crystal diamond, and that's why I'm gonna try to share all this stuff with you guys. And I'll put more stuff into Discord also about it. And so someone who is anxious all the time, they tend to be more codependent. They tend to always be looking at the other person for validation. Okay. They really care about what the other person is saying and thinking because they could lose that relationship. They're scared that that person's going to leave if they don't agree with them on things. Um, how does that develop? Well, it's kind of that whole thing. Okay, I mentioned earlier where you had a child in school and they were always being yelled at. Okay, the class in general. It wasn't just one person, it was everyone was yelled at. Okay, the child felt like they couldn't even maybe even ask to run to the bathroom because if they did that, they could get yelled at. So they stopped telling people what they feel. And um anxious attachment style does tend to go back and forth between things. Okay, at one time you may be indifferent and holding off because you put up that boundary, barrier, you put that wall up, you don't want to risk anything. Okay, or you might switch to the other side, which you're just really clingy with the person. And so it all depends on how you're feeling. Okay, and what that thought is. Some of the signs of someone with an anxious, okay, attachment style, they tend to be more clingy. People who are definitely more clingy, they're the ones, if you've ever had close friends or a significant other who was always just really clingy and you're like, whoa, 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 I need a little space. Chances are they're okay, the anxious type. They're very sensitive to criticism, whether it's real or perceived. And we've talked about that before. All criticism is not real. Okay, it's what we perceive. I tell people this all the I tell myself this all the time. Okay, when things get me frustrated because I'm like, wait, that's not what I meant, but it's how that person perceived it. And so they can be very sensitive to any type of criticism. Um, they need approval. They're looking for approval. They're always, if you catch them talking about stuff, they're trying to figure out how to get you to say, oh, yeah, I agree. That was totally wrong. Or, oh, I agree. They should have done that. Or they're working on that level a lot of times. They tend to be very jealous at times. Problem being alone. Okay. They need to have people around a lot of times. Okay. Because they need to get that feedback from other people. That feedback is telling them how to feel. So if people aren't around to give them that feedback, they don't know what to do as much. Now, guys, when you look at yourself in these things, some of these things are going to match perfectly. Some you're going to be like, I don't think so. And but that's where we start thinking and trying to figure things out. They may feel unworthy of love. They may have a low self-esteem. Again, that's why they're needing them to have others talk up about them, help them feel better. They're more codependent type thought. Um, there's an intense fear of rejection, being abandoned. Okay, at the core, if they look deep, chances are there's this huge fear that people are going to abandon them. And um, but they also have the difficulty trusting in other people because a lot of times that fear of abandonment. Um, According to one of the uh, professional therapists out there, people's people with anxious attachment style usually feel unworthy of love and need constant reassurance from their partners. They often blame themselves for the challenges in the relationship and can exhibit frequent and intense jealousy or disrupt due to that poor self esteem. Ultimately, there's a deep rooted fear of being abandoned, rejected, or left alone. And those fears typically show themselves in these behaviors. So if you're finding yourself in this category, those are it's you're looking at what's going on that's affected. Because what I would like to do next week is come back to this and talk to you about how you can not only change things, but recognize the changes. Because as we change, little things start changing in our lives. And a lot of times we don't recognize they're changing. But when they're thrown up on screen, you're like, oh my God, yeah, that has happened. So that's what I want to do with next week. So and also as this says here, an anxious, preoccupied attachment style may involve high anxiety levels, low avoidance. Anxious, preoccupied attachments can create a relationship that lacks trust or thrives on a chase. Okay. And again, go back to that mouse. It's always on the chase, always trying to get out of the way or come back, get the food or whatever. So, next step is the avoidant or dismissive group. So, this is the AC, the cat. So, those of you who came out with AC or are the cat, this is your group. So, an AC, the dismissive avoidant, here we go. Okay, or the cat is usually, okay, it says it there. They avoid things. They're dismissive of the relationships and all. Um, and a lot of times in this case, it might have been maybe they just did not know they they could not trust that that parent or those teachers or that person would be around for them. So they've learned to just have that distanced type of relationship. Okay, they're very self-reliant. Okay, this is that person who's like, I can't trust other people. All I can trust is myself. Okay, but when there's a big crisis, they tend to need the help. They become vulnerable and more open to things because as that crisis happens, all the walls come down. And as the walls come down, they're left feeling totally, for lack of a better word, naked in front of people. They're totally, everything is out there for people to see. And they become very vulnerable at that point. Um, a dismissive avoidant attachment style involves low anxiety levels. So they're not as anxious because you don't need to be anxious if you stay far away from everything, right? If you don't have to worry about friendships or relationships or things like that, then you don't have to worry about all the anxiety that goes with it. And so the attachment style leads to a more distant type relationships. You know, those people, okay, and I have had times of this in my past where I kind of, you would put people at arm's length because you don't want to let them close. So you just keep them at arm's length. Um, and as it says there, sometimes stemming from a fear of commitment. Okay, commitment being abandoned, whatever it might have that comes to that. Um, it's defined by failures to build long-term relationships. Everything's more focused on short. Hope, I have come a long way. My answers would have been different. Exactly, Hope. And that's why I want to follow up next week with that discussion. Because just because we grow up a certain way doesn't mean that we have to stay that way. Okay, as we acknowledge our strengths and weaknesses, we're able to become a better person. Okay, or who we're supposed to be and we're meant to be. We're allowed to conquer all that. So, how does this type, the avoidant dismissive, start as a child? Um, Caregivers often are leaving these children to fend for themselves. And even as a baby, it might be the type of person whose parents never okay, they'd be crying because they had a wet diaper or they were hungry or something. And they had that type of parent who just really didn't respond to it and let them cry. Okay, or oh well, they'll just and I'm not saying we all know. Okay, there are other things. Let your child cry a little, okay, and realize they can't get everything, and but you're still that parent is still there for them all the time. I'm talking about the ones who were kind of left. For example, those people who might have been born in orphanages, and you see this quite often with the Russian orphanages, where children were kept in these huge rooms of crib after crib after crib, and no one really took care of the child. And so this happens when a child is expected to be independent from early on days. Okay, that expectation. Reprimanded. Maybe the loved adult, okay, parent, whatever you want to call it, would reprimand them for depending on them. So maybe the child, okay, would get yelled at and reprimanded for asking for something that they needed rather than just doing it. Um, they could have been rejected when they were expressing their basic needs and emotions. They learned quickly that their caregiver didn't care what they thought or what they needed, okay, or that they were crying or that they were hurt or whatever. They got that feeling very quickly. Um, so those things do tend to happen, okay? Like in the case of this thing, okay, you would have had with one of these children we were talking about earlier when dad passed away and mom had to start taking care of more and more stuff on her own. And she had a young child who then becomes this type of attachment style because no one was there for them during that time because mom was so busy. And some of the signs that you might see within yourself if you're falling into that cat stage, think about cats. A cat describes this very clearly. Um, you might find yourself avoiding emotional or physical intimacy. You might be one of those people that you just, the idea of being intimate with someone, okay, not just physical, but emotionally, being open to someone else is just something you can't deal with. You might be uncomfortable expressing your feelings and letting your loved one know that you're having a problem with something or you're upset at something they've done. Um, can be dismissive of other people. Okay, you may feel threatened by anyone who tries to get close to you. Okay, you might be the type of person that when you were in high school years and people started coming and they were showing interest in you, you were like, "Oh, and you just wouldn't allow yourself to open up to that. You might have that feeling that you just don't need others in your life. You depend on yourself, and that's all you need is yourself. And in this type of situation, and yes, there's good things to being able to depend on yourself, but it's taken to that far level. And our the last of the types of styles. This is also known as disorganized attachment. Okay, it's basically these are your koala bears. These are those of you who fall underneath BD. So I know I have a lot of the B, at least two BDs in this group right now. This is you. This is also known as a disorganized attachment style. And it's basically within this group, a lot of times it's again high anxiety. In the relationship and all, there's this anxiety all the time as to what's going on. More dependent on the person. Okay. Where the avoidant person kind of holds people off, you're more dependent on that other person in your life. Okay. Very strongly fear they're going to reject you. Someone might end up rejecting you. Okay. It tends to come from possibly, I'm trying to figure out how to say this right now. Sometimes when you're growing up, parents or caregivers might be very disorganized and very unpredictable themselves on how you are going to respond. So say that little girl, okay, that wanted her mom, and mom would be cuddly one day, but the next day she was too busy, so she wasn't able to give any attention to her, things like that. Um, it doesn't have to be on an abusive, it could be an abusive level. It could be someone who, okay, parents drank or things like that. So you never knew exactly what you were going to get when they came home. And so a lot of times this style can be connected to childhood trauma or neglect, ABUSE, not necessarily always from the family again. Okay, it could be something that someone else in the family, okay, or someone else in the community, okay, was causing problems that made this child not know that they could depend on adults or on other people to be good and all. So a lot of time when a child is dealing with this type of attachment style, they seem confused a lot of times. If a adult is looking at them, their behavior seems very confusing. Like one day they're this way, one day they're like the little girl I was talking about. One day they were screaming, yelling, trying to get attention, and the next day they didn't care, or the next day after that they wanted to cuddle as tight as possible. It was just all over the place. Some of the signs that can go with this is, like I said, the fear of rejection, fear of that person you care about not being in your life any further. What if they walked out? What if they got mad at me and they walked out? What if they just are done with stuff and they leave? Um, and also an inability to regulate emotions, because growing up, you never knew really what to expect from those caregivers and how things changed. It also leads to, as you get older, you not being able to regulate your emotions as much. When you get mad, you get mad. Okay. When you get sad, you get sad, or you get, it's not being able to regulate them as well. Behaviors themselves might be contradictory. Okay, you might be looking at, oh, well, yeah, this person's trying to do this, but why are they doing it this way? Things are just confusing. Definite high levels of anxiety. Okay, you find yourself more, this type of person is always very, very anxious because they don't know what's going to happen around them. So if they're not anxious, they might, and on alert at all times, they might miss the cues. So that's why they're looking for the cues all the time. There's a difficulty in trusting other people all the way. Okay, you can start giving trust, but there's this part of you that's just, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can truly give, okay, and trust other people. And there's actual signs of both avoidant and anxious attachment styles. You can go back and forth between the two, actually. That's why it gets so disorganized, is because it could be on multiple different levels. Hey, lone wolf spirit. Avoidant personality disorder is a survival technique for trauma survivors. It is. It definitely can fall. Now, it doesn't mean you're necessarily, if you have an avoidant personality disorder, okay, doesn't mean it has to be that. Okay, actually, you go further and with that lone wolf, okay, and within the disability community, such as, okay, those on the spectrum and stuff like that. Yeah, and it's important to recognize that. But many times it is connected with things such as mood disorders, personality disorders, self-harm, substance use disorders. Um, it is probably the most closely tied to ABUSC and stuff. How do you see it in the relationships? Well, people tend, as I said, they tend to have that unpredictable, confusing type of behavior. They may be aloof one moment, independent. Okay. And then all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, they're clingy and emotional and all that. And you're like, oh my God, what just happened? I mean, just a few minutes ago, they were basically telling me to get the hell away because they don't want to have anything to do with us. Now, all of a sudden, they're clinging to me. Okay. So it's a lot more confusing on that level. Um, they desperately may seek love. Okay. Just desperately, you can see it in everything in them, but then they push their partner away because of the fear of love. Because especially if you're coming from that ABUSE background, that fear of loving someone, of trusting someone, you could get totally screwed if you're willing to trust someone else. So you want all that attention, but you're also scared to death of what might come after. Um, so a lot of times they perceive their partners are unpredictable and they themselves behave, because what happens is, if you're someone who falls in this, your behaviors are so unpredictable at times, perhaps, that the partner or whatever tends to get it. So you can run into a lot of different things that are going on with this. Um, but a lot of times it's just that need for security. So hope that helps. And I'll actually share some of the other stuff that I was able to get from this. I'll actually share the actual animal stuff that I was able to pull offline. Um, but perfect, 1 hour. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I kept it at 1 hour. That would give us the different styles. And let me ask you guys real quick, those of you who are still in chat and all that, how many of you guys feel that finding out your attachment style will help you in figuring out how you approach friends, how you approach other people, so that you can either make changes or understand other people's behaviors? Because that's sometimes what it also is. I used to give people the Myers Briggs test when I was an administrator at a facility. I would give the Myers Briggs test. That way I understood personalities better and what it was that people needed from me as their boss. And because different people react different ways, and it's helpful to know how people react. So thanks, Hope. Thank you. Thank you. And like I said, there's some really more in depth okay tests out there if you really want to look at it more clearly. Make sure did you really fall, especially if you're borderline and things, you might want to retake the tests or things like that, and I'll post those over in Discord. But other than that, I hope this helped you guys. I hope this was something that people were able to kind of help themselves and on see how they respond to others, even maybe your own significant others, see where they fall in these things. So other than that, though, we will be going into Cantina in 10 to not 10 minutes. Oh my gosh, I'm subtracting 10 in my head. Actually, 51 minutes. We will be going into Cantina. And I am going to be hopefully sealing some of these diamond painting stuff, some of the large diamond paintings. I actually got all of these that I am hoping to sell as full force diamond paintings. So I've got to seal all of them so they don't fall apart. So I'll be doing that tonight during Cantina, and hopefully we can talk story and just have fun for 2 hours. And then I got to get to work. So hope you guys have a great day. What, Cassie? Are you happy? Are you happy? So I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your evening. If you're going to join us, I did set this up to redirect you to Cantina. So if you just stay here, it should take you over to Cantina, and we will be ready to go for that at the top of the hour. So love each and every one of you, and I will talk to you later. Aloha. Bye, guys.